3 days into construction, Do-Yun was already bored out of his mind. He had watched the alien work crews dig foundations until his eyes hurt. He had listened to his mother explain atmospheric processors to the Morphean engineers until he could recite the specifications from memory. He had even tried to make conversation with the Titanian heavy machinery operators, but they only spoke in rumbles that sounded like distant rock slides. The most interesting thing on the entire construction site was the Guardian security bots, and they spent most of their time doing the same patrol routes over and over again. Alpha 7 would roll from the north perimeter to the east perimeter, scan for threats, then continue south. Beta 7 covered the western approach and the supply depot. Gamma 7 monitored the airspace and maintained communications with the orbital traffic control. It was all very efficient and very, very boring. Do-Hyun sat on a stack of building materials and watched Alpha 7 complete another circuit of the site. The robot moved with perfect mechanical precision, its sensors sweeping back and forth as it recorded everything in its path. When it reached the charging station near the temporary command center, it plugged itself in for exactly 12 minutes, while running diagnostic routines. That was when Do-Hyun got his idea. While his mother was busy explaining human architectural philosophy to a group of Zephyrian observers, Do-Hyun quietly approached the charging station. Alpha 7 stood motionless, its blue status lights blinking in a steady rhythm. The access panel on its back was closed, but Do-Hyun had studied the technical manuals during their space journey. He knew exactly where to find the secondary programming interface. Working quickly, he connected his portable tablet to the Guardian's diagnostic port. The robot's systems were incredibly complex, but Do-Hyun had always been good with computers. His mother said he had inherited his father's talent for understanding how machines think. The first thing he did was simple. He uploaded his favorite music playlist to Alpha 7's memory banks and created a new subroutine that would randomly select songs during patrol routes. It was harmless enough, just a little background music to make the boring security rounds more interesting. But then Do-Hyun looked at the robot's movement protocols and had another idea. If Alpha 7 was going to play music anyway, why not make the patrol routes match the rhythm? He started modifying the bot's walking patterns, programming in subtle variations that would sync with different types of songs. The hardest part was the lighting system. Do-Hyun spent almost an hour figuring out how to repurpose the Guardian's status indicators. Instead of just showing system information, he programmed them to create patterns that would pulse and flow with the music. He even added some LED strips from his personal electronics kit, carefully attaching them to the robot's arms and shoulders. By the time Alpha 7's charging cycle completed, Do-Hyun had created something entirely new. The security bot disconnected from the charging station and began its next patrol route. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then, the music started. The opening beats of a popular K-pop song echoed across the construction site. Alpha 7's LED strips began to glow in rhythm with the melody. As the robot rolled forward, its movements flowed smoothly with the music, turning a mechanical patrol into something that looked almost like dancing. The effect on the construction site was immediate and dramatic. The Zephyrian workers stopped what they were doing and turned toward the music. Their transparent bodies began to shimmer with colors that matched the song's rhythm. Do-Hyun had read that Zephyrians communicated through harmonic frequencies, but he had never seen them react to human music before. They seemed genuinely moved by what they were hearing. The Morphean technicians gathered in a small group, their liquid metal forms shifting and flowing in patterns that somehow matched the beat. Even the massive Titanian operators paused their heavy machinery to watch the dancing security robot roll past their workstations. What in the galaxy is that? Noise? Dr. Minji Park came running from the command center, her face showing a mixture of confusion and concern. She stopped short when she saw Alpha 7 gliding between construction equipment with perfect grace, its lights creating beautiful patterns in the alien afternoon. Do-Hyun! She called out, her voice carrying across the site. What did you do to my security bot? Her son tried to look innocent, but the grin on his face gave him away. I just thought Alpha 7 looked lonely doing the same patrol over and over. Now he has something to keep him company. Minji watched in amazement as the Guardian bot completed its circuit, the music fading as it returned to its standard monitoring position. The alien workers slowly went back to their tasks, but she could see them glancing toward Alpha 7 with obvious interest. Do-yun, these are military-grade security systems, she said, trying to sound stern. They're not toys. You can't just reprogram them because you're bored. But Mom, look how happy everyone is, Do-yun protested. The Zephyrians were glowing brighter than I've ever seen. The Morphians were doing some kind of dance. Even the Titanians stopped working to watch. Before Minji could respond, Harmony of Stars approached them. The Zephyrian's body was still shimmering with residual color patterns from the music. Dr. Park, the alien said, its voice carrying a new warmth. Your security unit's performance was most unexpected. The harmonic frequencies resonated with our communication patterns in a very pleasant way. Shift of Purpose flowed over to join the conversation. The rhythmic patterns were fascinating. We have never seen defensive technology that incorporates aesthetic elements. It suggests a unique approach to security philosophy. Even Stone Who Endures rumbled over to them, his massive footsteps shaking the ground. Small human child has made Guardian machine less frightening. Our workers feel more comfortable now. Minji looked around the construction site and realized something important had changed. The alien workers were moving differently now, with less tension in their movements. They were glancing at the Guardian bots with curiosity instead of fear. The atmosphere of the entire project felt lighter somehow. The music was enjoyable, continued Harmony of Stars. But more than that, it showed us something about human nature we had not understood before. You find ways to add beauty even to necessary functions. Our species focuses on efficiency above all else, admitted Shift of Purpose. We had not considered that security systems could also serve social purposes. Stone Who Endures made a sound like pleased thunder. Guardian machine with music is still Guardian, but now is also friend. This is clever thinking. As the afternoon progressed, Minji found herself watching the construction crews with new eyes. The Zephyrian workers had started humming along with Alpha 7's music during their next patrol. The Morphians were experimenting with movement patterns that matched the robot's modified walking style. Even the Titanians seemed more relaxed, occasionally nodding their massive heads in time with the beat. During the evening meal break, the alien workers gathered around Alpha 7's charging station. They watched with fascination as the robot went through its maintenance routine, its LED strips creating gentle light patterns even while stationary. Your offspring has remarkable technical abilities, Harmony of Stars observed to Minji. The modifications to your security unit required sophisticated understanding of both mechanical and software systems. He's always been good with computers, Minji replied, pride and worry mixing in her voice. But I'm concerned about him tampering with essential security equipment. Perhaps, suggested Shift of Purpose, the modifications have not reduced security effectiveness. The Guardian unit continues to perform all required functions while also serving additional purposes. Stone Who Endures rumbled his agreement. Machine still watches for dangers, but now also brings joy to workers. This makes construction sites safer in different way. That evening, as the alien work crews returned to their temporary shelters, Minji sat down with her son to have a serious conversation. Do-hyun, what you did today was impressive, she began. Your programming skills are getting better every day, but you can't just modify critical systems without permission. I know, Mom, Do-hyun said, looking down at his hands. I just wanted to make things more interesting. Everyone seemed so nervous around the Guardian bots before. That's exactly the point, Minji replied. You actually solved a problem I hadn't even recognized. The alien workers were uncomfortable with our security technology. Your modifications made the Guardians seem less threatening without making them less effective. She paused, considering her next words carefully. I'm going to let the music modifications stay. But from now on, if you want to change anything else, you need to ask me first. These machines are responsible for keeping everyone safe. Do-hyun nodded eagerly. I promise, Mom. No more secret modifications. But as they walked back to their temporary shelter, Do-hyun's mind was already racing with new ideas. Alpha 7 looked so much better with the LED lights and music. Beta 7 and Gamma 7 still looked boring and serious all the time. Maybe they needed some improvements, too. He thought about the way the alien workers had reacted to the music. They had seemed genuinely happy for the first time since construction began. If a simple playlist could make such a difference, what could he accomplish with more ambitious modifications? Dr. Minji Park stood at the edge of the construction site and smiled. The morning sun on Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the empty land, where her greatest project would soon rise. She had designed space stations that housed millions of people. She had built orbital cities that spun through the darkness between stars. But this was different. This would be her masterpiece. Mom, are we really going to live here for 6 months? Her 12-year-old son, Do-hyun, kicked at a small rock and watched it bounce across the alien soil. There's nothing here but dirt and weird plants. Minji laughed and put her hand on his shoulder. Just wait until you see what we're going to build, Do-hyun. This will be the first home in the galaxy where humans and aliens can live together as neighbors. The Galactic Housing Coalition had chosen her for this project after years of watching human architects transform dead space into living communities. Other species built structures that worked. Humans built spaces that felt alive. The galaxy was finally ready to learn from humanity's approach to making homes instead of just buildings. Guardian units, begin site survey, Minji called out. 3 sleek security robots rolled forward on silent wheels. Each Guardian Series 7 stood as tall as a person, with smooth silver bodies and glowing blue sensors. Their heads turned constantly as they scanned the area for threats. Advanced AI systems processed thousands of data points every second. These machines represented the best of human defensive technology. The lead Guardian, Alpha 7, spoke in a calm electronic voice. Site perimeter secure, Dr. Park. No hostile entities detected. Beginning detailed terrain analysis. Do-hyun watched. The robots move with practiced efficiency. Why do we need security bots, Mom? I thought this planet was supposed to be peaceful. It is peaceful, Minji replied. But when you're building something that will change how the galaxy thinks about living together, you want to be prepared for anything. Besides, the other species get nervous around human technology. Having proper security makes them feel safer. Low humming sound filled the air. 3 ships descended from the sky, each one different from the others. The first ship looked like it was made of living crystal, all smooth curves and rainbow colors. The second moved like liquid metal, shifting shape as it flew. The third seemed to be carved from solid rock, angular and heavy. The observers have arrived, Minji said. Remember what we talked about, Do-hyun. These beings have never worked with humans before. We need to show them that we can be trusted. The crystal ship landed first. The boarding ramp lowered with a sound like wind chimes, and 3 tall figures emerged. Their bodies were transparent, with light flowing through them like water. These were the Zephyrians, beings who communicated through color and sound. Their leader approached Minji with slow, graceful steps. Dr. Park, the Zephyrian said, its voice like music. I am Harmony of Stars. We come to observe human building methods. Welcome to our construction site, Minji replied with a bow. I hope you'll find our work interesting. The metal ship transformed as it touched down, reshaping itself into a perfect landing platform. The beings that emerged looked like silver sculptures come to life. They flowed more than walked, their forms constantly changing. These were the Morphians, masters of adaptive technology. Human Minji, spoke their leader, its voice shifting between different tones. "I am called Shift of Purpose. Your species builds with strange methods. We wish to understand." The rock ship landed with a heavy thud that shook the ground. Massive doors ground open, and out came beings that looked like walking mountains. The Titanians stood 3 meters tall, their skin rough like stone. Their leader stepped forward, each footstep leaving prints in the hard earth. "Small human architect," rumbled the Titanian in a voice like an earthquake. "I am Stone Who Endures. We will watch your work with great interest." Do-hyun stared up at the alien visitors with wide eyes. He had seen pictures of other species before, but meeting them in person was completely different. The Zephyrians' light patterns were beautiful to watch. The Morphians' changing shape made him dizzy if he looked too long. The Titanian was so big that Do-hyun felt like an ant standing next to a building. "Do-hyun," Minji said quietly, "would you like to show our guests the construction site?" The boy nodded eagerly. He had studied all the plans with his mother during their journey to Kepler 442b. "This way, everyone. Mom designed the most amazing community center you've ever seen." As they walked across the site, Minji explained her vision. "Most galactic, housing separates different species into their own sections. Humans live with humans, Zephyrians live with Zephyrians, and so on. But what if we built something different? What if we created spaces where everyone could live together and learn from each other?" She pointed to different areas of the empty land. "The residential towers will have adjustable atmospheres and gravity fields. Families can customize their homes for their specific needs. The community spaces will have universal design elements that work for all species." "How will you manage the different environmental requirements?" asked Shift of Purpose. "Our people need different temperatures, different air mixtures." "That's where human engineering really shines," Minji said with pride. "We don't just solve problems. We find solutions that make everyone happy. Each building will have microclimate zones that can change from room to room. You can have a Morphian family living next door to Titanians, and both will be perfectly comfortable." Stone Who Endures made a sound like distant thunder. "This seems impossible. Our species have tried such projects before. They always fail." "They fail because other species design for function only," Minji explained. "Humans design for feelings too. A home isn't just shelter. It's a place where you feel safe and happy and connected to your neighbors." The Guardian bots rolled ahead of the group, constantly scanning for any threats. Alpha 7 paused near a cluster of alien plants and took detailed readings. Beta 7 monitored the airspace above them. Gamma 7 kept watch on their back trail. Do-hyun noticed how the aliens reacted to the security robots. The Zephyrians' lights dimmed slightly when the Guardians came near. The Morphians shifted into more compact forms. Even Stone Who Endures seemed to tense up around the machines. "Your defensive units are quite advanced," Harmony of Stars observed. "Perhaps too advanced for a peaceful construction project." "Human. Military technology makes many species uncomfortable," admitted Shift of Purpose. "We wonder if such weapons are necessary here." Minji sighed. This was always the problem when working with other species. They saw human technology and immediately thought about war. "The Guardian units aren't weapons, they're protectors. Their job is to keep everyone safe while we work." "But they could be weapons," Stone Who Endures pointed out. "Human machines are known for their adaptability." "All technology can be dangerous if misused," Minji replied. "But we choose to use ours for building instead of destroying. That's what makes us human." As they continued the tour, Do-hyun found himself walking next to the Guardian bots. He had always been fascinated by robots and computers. During the long space journey to Kepler 442b, he had spent hours reading about the Guardian Series 7 specifications. The bots were incredible machines. Their AI systems could learn and adapt to new situations. Their sensor arrays could detect threats that human eyes would miss. Their defensive capabilities could stop almost any attack. But watching them now, rolling silently across the alien landscape, Do-hyun thought they seemed a little boring. They were so serious all the time, so focused on their security protocols. They never seemed to have any fun. As the group walked back toward the landing ships, Do-hyun's mind began to wander. He thought about the long months ahead. 6 months of watching construction crews dig foundations and install equipment. 6 months of listening to adults talk about building codes and environmental systems. But maybe, just maybe, those 6 months could be more interesting than anyone expected. After all, the Guardian bots had incredibly sophisticated programming, and Do-hyun had brought his portable coding tablet with full network access. He smiled to himself as an idea began to form. His mother wanted to show the galaxy what humans could do with architecture and engineering. Maybe it was time to show them what humans could do with a little creativity too. The alien observers climbed back into their ships, promising to return the next day when construction officially began. As the vessels lifted off into the afternoon, Sky, Minji put her arm around her son's shoulders. "Well, Do-hyun, what did you think of our visitors?" "They seem nice," the boy replied, watching Alpha 7 patrol the perimeter of their temporary camp. "But I think they're all going to be very surprised by what humans can really do." Minji smiled, not knowing how right her son would turn out to be. A week had passed since Alpha 7 started its musical patrols, and the construction site had transformed into something Minji had never expected. The alien workers arrived each morning with what could only be described as enthusiasm. The Zephyrians would gather near Alpha 7's starting position, their bodies glowing softly as they waited for the morning music to begin. The Morphians had started timing their shape changes to match the robot's rhythm. Even the stoic Titanians would pause in their heavy work to nod along with the beat. Everything was going smoothly until Minji discovered what her son had done to Beta 7. She first noticed something was wrong during the lunch break on Tuesday. Instead of the usual scattered groups of aliens eating their separate meals in uncomfortable silence, she found the entire construction crew gathered in a large circle around Beta 7. The security robot stood in the center, but something was very different about its appearance. Beta 7 now sported a third arm attachment that definitely hadn't been part of its original design. The mechanical limb was carefully assembling what looked like elaborate sandwiches using ingredients that seemed to appear from nowhere. As Minji watched in amazement, the robot handed a perfectly crafted meal to a Zephyrian worker, then immediately began preparing something completely different for a waiting Morphian. "Do-hyun," Minji called out, her voice carrying across the lunch gathering. "We need to talk. Right now." Her son looked up from where he was sitting with a group of young Titanian apprentices, all of them munching happily on sandwiches that looked far too sophisticated to come from their standard meal supplies. "Hi, Mom," Do-hyun said with the kind of innocent smile that meant he knew he was in trouble. "Beta 7 was just helping with lunch distribution. The workers seemed hungry. That security robot has been modified with unauthorized equipment," Minji said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Where did you get a robotic arm assembly? And more importantly, where is all this food coming from?" Before Do-hyun could answer, Shift of Purpose flowed over to them, carrying what appeared to be a sandwich made of crystallized energy and metallic paste. "Dr. Park, your security unit has learned to prepare sustenance according to each species' specific dietary requirements. This is remarkable programming." "The nutritional balance is perfect," added Harmony of Stars, its body glowing with contentment. "Beta 7 analyzed our biological needs and created meals that enhance both physical health and emotional well-being." Stone, who endures, rumbled his agreement while holding a sandwich that looked like it was made of compressed minerals and organic compounds. "Guardian Machine understands Titanian metabolism better than our own food preparers. Very impressive engineering." Minji stared at her son. "Do-hyun, explain. Now." "Well," Do-Yun began, fidgeting with his tablet. I noticed that everyone was eating separately during lunch breaks. The Zephyrians only eat energy-based foods, the Morphians need liquid nutrients, and the Titanians require mineral supplements. Nobody was talking to each other because they were all worried about accidentally eating something that might make them sick. He pointed toward Beta 7, which was now preparing what looked like a glowing soup for another Zephyrian worker. I found some extra construction equipment in the supply depot. There was a precision manipulator arm that wasn't being used, and a molecular assembly unit that was just sitting in storage. You built a kitchen into a military security robot, Minji said, slowly. Not just a kitchen, Do-Yun corrected. A smart kitchen. Beta 7 scans each worker's biological signature and determines their exact nutritional needs. Then it uses the molecular assembly unit to create perfectly balanced meals from basic matter compounds. But how did you program it to understand alien? Biochemistry? Minji asked, her engineer's curiosity overriding her parental concern. Do-Hyun's grin widened. That was the clever part. I modified Beta 7's threat assessment protocols. Instead of just scanning for dangerous weapons or hostile intentions, it now identifies nutritional threats like hunger, fatigue, and dietary imbalances. You reprogrammed a security bot to think hunger was a security problem, Minji repeated. Hungry workers are less efficient and more likely to have accidents, Do-Hyun explained. So technically, poor nutrition is a security risk. Beta 7 is just doing its job by keeping everyone properly fed. Minji looked around the lunch gathering and realized something remarkable was happening. For the first time since construction began, aliens from different species were sitting together, sharing their meals and actually talking to each other. The Zephyrians were creating light patterns to accompany the Morphians' stories. The Titanians were teaching the others simple songs in their rumbling language. The social integration benefits are significant, observed Shift of Purpose. When beings share food together, they build trust and understanding. Beta 7 has become a focal point for community interaction, added Harmony of Stars. The daily meal gathering has improved cooperation between all work teams. Before Minji could respond, a new ship appeared in the afternoon sky. This vessel was different from the observer ships they had seen before. It was larger, more angular, and painted in the official colors of the Galactic Safety Authority. Oh no, Minji muttered. The safety inspector is early. The ship landed with official precision near the command center. A massive ramp lowered, and out stepped Commander Vorthak, the most feared safety inspector in the galaxy. The Rigelian stood 3 meters tall, with 4 powerful arms and skin like polished armor. His reputation for shutting down construction projects that violated galactic safety codes was legendary. Commander Vorthak surveyed the construction site with cold efficiency. His 4 eyes took in every detail, from the foundation work to the temporary structures. When his gaze fell on the lunch gathering around Beta 7, his expression became even more stern. "Dr. Park," Commander Vorthak called out in a voice like grinding metal, "I am here for the mandatory security review. I trust your defensive systems are operating according to standard military protocols." Minji felt her heart sink. How could... She explained that her security robots had been turned into a DJ and a chef by her 12-year-old son? The Galactic Safety Authority had strict rules about military technology in civilian construction zones. "Commander Vorthak," she began, "our security systems are fully operational and maintaining complete site protection. However, there have been some minor modifications to improve worker relations." The inspector's 4 arms crossed in a gesture that clearly meant disapproval. "Modifications to military-grade security systems require authorization from the Galactic Defense Council. I assume you have the proper documentation." "Well, actually," Minji started, but she was interrupted by Beta 7 rolling directly toward the imposing inspector. "Greetings, Commander Vorthak," the robot said in its calm, electronic voice. "Bioscan indicates elevated stress hormones and nutritional deficiency. Please allow me to prepare appropriate sustenance for your species' dietary requirements. The inspector stared down at the security robot with obvious confusion. I am here to inspect your defensive capabilities, not to eat lunch. Proper nutrition is essential for optimal cognitive function during safety inspections, Beta 7 replied, already assembling ingredients with its additional arm. Rigelian physiology requires high-protein compounds with specific mineral content. Please stand. Bye. Within minutes, Beta 7 had created what looked like a gourmet meal perfectly suited to Rigelian biology. The sandwich was a work of art, layered with proteins and nutrients that would enhance the inspector's natural strength and mental clarity. Commander Vorthok accepted the food with obvious suspicion, but after taking a single bite, his expression changed completely. His forearms relaxed, and something that might have been a smile appeared on his armored face. "This is excellent," he admitted. "The nutritional balance is perfect for my species." How did a security robot acquire such sophisticated knowledge of Rigelian dietary needs? Beta 7's programming includes advanced threat assessment capabilities, Do-hyun said, stepping forward. It identified malnutrition as a potential security risk and developed appropriate countermeasures. The inspector took another bite of his sandwich and nodded thoughtfully. Interesting interpretation of security protocols. The robot maintains its primary defensive functions while also addressing secondary risk factors. That's correct, Minji said, beginning to see where this was heading. Our security systems take a comprehensive approach to site safety. Commander Vorthak spent the next hour testing Beta 7's capabilities. He was amazed to discover that the robot could simultaneously monitor for security threats, prepare meals for multiple species, and coordinate with the other Guardian units to maintain complete site coverage. This is most unusual, the inspector concluded. But I cannot find any reduction in security effectiveness. If anything, the modifications have created a more stable work environment, which reduces the likelihood of accidents and conflicts. As Commander Vorthak prepared to leave, he turned to Minji with something approaching approval. Dr. Park, your interpretation of security protocols is unconventional but effective. I will note in my report that your defensive systems exceed standard requirements while also contributing to worker safety through innovative nutritional support programs. 2 weeks into construction, Minji thought she had everything under control. Alpha 7 continued its musical patrols, keeping morale high among the workers. Beta 7 had become the unofficial community center, bringing different species together during meal times. The construction was ahead of schedule. The alien workers were cooperating better than anyone had expected, and the safety inspections had all passed with flying colors. Then she discovered what Do-hyun had done to Gamma 7. It started on a Thursday morning when Minji noticed strange lights flickering in the pre-dawn darkness. She looked out the window of their temporary shelter and saw something that made her question whether she was still dreaming. Gamma 7 was moving through its patrol route, but instead of the usual blue status lights, the robot was surrounded by flowing patterns of colored light that seemed to dance in the air around it. As she watched, the holographic display shifted and changed, creating what could only be described as art. Swirling galaxies of light formed and dissolved around the security robot. Abstract patterns flowed like liquid starlight. Beautiful geometric shapes bloomed and faded in perfect rhythm with Gamma 7's movements. But the most amazing part was how the light patterns seemed to respond to the emotions of nearby beings. When a group of early rising Zephyrian workers approached, the holograms shifted to warm golden colors that matched the aliens' natural communication frequencies. When some Morphean technicians came to check their equipment, the patterns became fluid and flowing, mimicking their shape-changing abilities. "Do-hyun," Minji called out, her voice echoing across the construction site. "What did you do to my third security robot?" Her son emerged from behind a stack of building materials where he had obviously been watching Gamma 7's performance. "Hi, Mom. I thought you might notice that eventually." "How long has this been going on?" Minji asked, walking toward the robot to get a better look at the light display. Just since yesterday evening, Do-yun replied. I wanted to test it during the night shift first, to make sure everything worked properly. As they got closer to Gamma 7, Minji could see the modifications more clearly. The robot had been equipped with multiple holographic projectors that seemed to be integrated directly into its sensor array. But these weren't standard construction equipment. The projectors were far too sophisticated for anything that should have been available on the construction site. Where did you get holographic projection equipment? Minji demanded. Well, Do-yun said, looking slightly embarrassed. Remember those atmospheric processors that the Morphean engineers were testing last week? They had some really advanced photon manipulation systems that weren't being used. You took apart atmospheric processing equipment to build art projectors, Minji said slowly. I didn't take them apart, Do-yun protested. I just borrowed some components that weren't essential for the main function. The atmospheric processors still work perfectly. I checked. Before Minji could respond, the morning work crews began arriving for their shifts. The reaction to Gamma 7's light display was immediate and dramatic. The Zephyrian workers stopped in their tracks, their transparent bodies beginning to glow with colors that harmonized perfectly with the robot's projections. Several of them made sounds that Minji had never heard before, musical tones that seemed to express wonder and joy. The Morphean technicians gathered around Gamma 7, their liquid metal forms shifting and flowing in patterns that matched the holographic art. One of them, a senior engineer named Flow of Ideas, approached Minji with obvious excitement. Dr. Park, Flow of Ideas said, its voice rippling with enthusiasm. This artistic display is beyond anything our species has ever created. The emotional resonance patterns are incredibly sophisticated. How did your security unit develop such advanced aesthetic programming? The projections respond to biometric readings, Do-yun explained before his mother could answer. Gamma 7 scans the emotional states of nearby beings and creates art that reflects what they're feeling. Happy emotions get bright, flowing patterns. Calm feelings create gentle, peaceful images. If someone was angry or scared, the display would show different colors and shapes. Even the Titanian workers seemed affected by the light show. Stone Who Endures approached them with what might have been curiosity, his massive form casting shadows that somehow became part of the artistic display. Small human child has given guardian machine the gift of beauty, the Titanian rumbled. Our people do not create such things. We build for strength and function. But this makes the heart feel light. As the day progressed, word of Gamma 7's artistic abilities spread beyond the construction site. Ships began arriving from nearby settlements, carrying beings who had heard about the security robot that created emotional art. Representatives from the crystalline hegemony sent a delegation specifically to study the holographic displays. Even some silicon-based architects, known throughout the galaxy for their rigid adherence to purely functional design, requested permission to observe Gamma 7's performances. By afternoon, the construction site had become an impromptu art gallery. Beings from a dozen different species gathered around Gamma 7, watching in fascination as the robot created personalized light shows that seemed to understand and reflect each viewer's inner emotional state. This is unprecedented, observed Crystal Song of Depths, the lead representative from the crystalline hegemony. Art that adapts to the observer's emotional state represents a completely new form of aesthetic expression. The technical complexity is remarkable, added Rigid Structure Prime, one of the Silicon architects. We have never considered integrating aesthetic functions into practical systems. Minji watched the gathering crowd with growing concern. While she was proud of her son's creativity, she was also worried about the attention it was attracting. Not all species in the galaxy appreciated human innovation, and some might see these modifications as threatening rather than beautiful. Her concerns proved justified when a new ship appeared in the afternoon sky. This vessel was darker than the others, angular and aggressive-looking. The markings on its hull identified it as belonging to the Predator caste, a militaristic faction known for their suspicion of human technology. The ship landed with deliberate intimidation, its engines creating clouds of smoke and fire. Out stepped 3 figures in dark armor, their faces hidden behind battle masks. The leader, identified by the red markings on his armor, surveyed the artistic gathering with obvious displeasure. "I am Warlord Krax of the Predator caste," the leader announced in a voice like grinding steel. "We have received reports of unauthorized military modifications to human security systems. This gathering will disperse immediately so we may conduct a proper inspection." The crowd of art observers began to back away nervously. The Predator caste had a reputation for aggressive enforcement of galactic military regulations. Their arrival usually meant trouble for anyone involved in unsanctioned weapons development. "Warlord Krax," Minji said, stepping forward diplomatically, "our security systems are operating within all approved parameters. The modifications you may have heard about are purely aesthetic enhancements that do not affect defensive capabilities." "Aesthetic enhancements," Krax repeated mockingly. "Human. Deception is well known throughout the galaxy. You disguise weapons as entertainment to avoid proper scrutiny." "These aren't weapons," Do-hyun said, moving to stand beside his mother. "Gamma 7 just makes pretty lights that match how people are feeling. Look, I'll show you." Before anyone could stop him, Do-hyun approached Gamma 7 and activated the holographic display. The robot immediately began scanning the assembled beings, and the air around it filled with swirling patterns of light and color. But when the scanners detected Warlord Krax, something unexpected happened. The holographic display shifted to deep, aggressive reds and sharp, angular patterns that seemed to reflect the Predator's hostile emotions. The art became a mirror of the warrior's inner state, showing his suspicion and aggression in brilliant, intimidating colors. Krax stared at the display with obvious surprise. "The patterns, they show my thoughts," he said slowly. "Not thoughts," Do-hyun corrected. "Emotions. Gamma 7 can tell how you're feeling and creates art that matches it. Right now you're feeling suspicious and ready for a fight, so the display shows aggressive patterns." "This is some form of mental invasion," one of Krax's companions growled. "Human mind-reading technology disguised as art." "It's not mind-reading," Minji explained quickly. "The robot simply analyzes biometric data like heart rate, body temperature, and brainwave patterns. It doesn't access thoughts or memories, just general emotional states." Warlord Krax continued to stare at the holographic display, watching as the patterns shifted in response to his changing emotions. As his initial suspicion gave way to curiosity, the harsh reds softened to amber and gold. The angular shapes became more flowing and graceful. "Fascinating," he admitted grudgingly. "But what military purpose does such technology serve? Art has no place in warfare?" "Maybe that's exactly why it's so powerful," Do-hyun suggested. "Nobody expects a security robot to create beautiful things. It makes people want to come closer and see more, instead of running away or attacking." 3 days after Warlord Krax's first visit, his ship returned to Kepler 442b with a request that made Minji's blood run cold. The Predator caste wanted to conduct a formal military assessment of the construction site's defenses. They claimed it was standard procedure when human security technology was deployed in neutral space. But Minji knew better. This was a test, and failure could mean the end of everything they had built. "Dr. Park," Warlord Krax announced as he emerged from his ship with a full squad of armored warriors. "The Predator caste High Command has authorized a comprehensive security evaluation. We will conduct simulated attacks to determine the true capabilities of your defensive systems." Minji felt her heart sink. The Guardian bots were certainly capable of defending the construction site, but their modifications had changed them in ways that might not impress military observers. How could she explain that her security robots now spent most of their time playing music, making sandwiches, and creating art? "Warlord Krax," she replied carefully. Our security systems are operating at full efficiency. However, they have been optimized for the specific challenges of a multi-species construction environment. We shall see, Krax responded with obvious skepticism. My warriors will simulate various attack scenarios. Your defensive units must respond appropriately, or this construction project will be deemed a security risk. The news of the impending test spread quickly throughout the construction site. The alien workers gathered in nervous groups, whispering among themselves about what would happen if the humans failed the military assessment. The Zephyrians' natural glow dimmed with worry. The Morphians shifted into more compact defensive shapes. Even the normally confident Titanians seemed uneasy about the situation. Do-Yun found his mother standing near the command center, staring at the 3 Guardian bots as they went through their modified routines. Alpha 7 was rolling past a group of workers while playing a cheerful melody. Beta 7 was distributing afternoon snacks to the construction crews. Gamma 7 was creating gentle light patterns that seemed designed to calm everyone's nerves. "Mom," Do-Yun said quietly, "are you worried about the test?" "Honestly, yes," Minji admitted. "The Guardian bots are still perfectly capable of defending this site, but they don't look like traditional military equipment anymore. If the Predator cast expects a show of force, they're going to be disappointed." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," Do-Yun suggested. "The modifications I made didn't remove any of the security functions. They just added new capabilities on top of the existing ones." Before Minji could respond, Warlord Krax approached them with his tactical assessment team. "Dr. Park, we are ready to begin the evaluation. My warriors will attack from 3 different directions simultaneously. Your defensive systems must detect, engage, and neutralize all threats within acceptable time parameters." "Understood," Minji replied, though she wasn't sure she understood anything about what was going to happen. Krax activated a communicator device and spoke in the harsh language of the Predator caste. Moments later, his warriors spread out around the perimeter of the construction site, disappearing into the alien landscape with practiced stealth. The attack began at exactly noon, just as the construction crews were gathering for their daily meal around Beta 7. Warning alarms started blaring, as the Guardian bots detected incoming threats from multiple directions. Alpha 7 immediately abandoned its musical patrol and began moving toward the northern perimeter with mechanical precision. Beta 7 paused in its sandwich distribution to activate defensive protocols. Gamma 7's artistic light displays shifted to tactical readouts showing enemy positions. But what happened next was unlike any military engagement anyone had ever witnessed. Instead of deploying weapons or raising defensive barriers, the Guardian bots responded to the simulated attack with the full range of their modified capabilities. Alpha 7 rolled toward the approaching Predator warriors while broadcasting music at maximum volume. The sound wasn't random noise, though. Do-Yun's programming had somehow selected songs with specific rhythmic patterns that matched the frequency of Predator heartbeats. The attacking warriors found themselves slowing down despite their training, their aggressive charge becoming synchronized with the beat of the music. Some of them actually started moving in time with the rhythm, their battle formations dissolving into something that looked almost like a dance. Meanwhile, Beta 7 had identified the incoming attackers as beings in need of nutritional support. The robot immediately began preparing what its analysis indicated were optimal combat rations for Predator physiology. As the warriors approached from the eastern flank, they were met not with defensive fire, but with an array of perfectly crafted military field meals. The most disorienting response came from Gamma 7, whose artistic holographic displays shifted to create patterns specifically designed to match Predator emotional states during combat. The attacking warriors found themselves surrounded by swirling lights that seemed to understand and respond to their feelings of aggression, determination, and warrior pride. Warlord Krax watched from his command position as his carefully planned assault turned into something completely unprecedented. His warriors were still advancing on the construction site, but they were doing so while listening to music, carrying sandwiches, and surrounded by beautiful light shows that celebrated their martial spirit. "What is happening to my attack force?" Krax demanded, speaking into his communicator. The response came from his lead assault commander, whose voice sounded confused but not distressed. "Sir, the human defensive systems are highly unusual. We are encountering aggressive hospitality rather than hostile resistance." "Explain," Krax ordered. "The security robots appear to be attempting to make us comfortable while we attack them," the commander replied. "One unit is playing music that matches our combat rhythms. Another is offering refreshments. The third is creating artistic displays that seem designed to honor our warrior traditions." As the mock battle continued, something remarkable began to happen. The Predator warriors found it increasingly difficult to maintain their aggressive mindset while being treated as honored guests rather than enemies. The music from Alpha 7 was genuinely enjoyable, with rhythms that enhanced rather than disrupted their natural movement patterns. The food from Beta 7 was not only nutritionally perfect, but also surprisingly delicious. The art from Gamma 7 showed them their own warrior culture reflected back in beautiful, respectful patterns. By the time the attacking force reached the center of the construction site, they were no longer behaving like invaders. They were moving like guests at a celebration, still carrying their weapons, but no longer thinking about using them. "This is most irregular," Warlord Krax muttered as he watched his elite warriors being systematically befriended by the human security systems. The climax of the engagement came when the three Guardian bots converged on the largest group of attackers, near the command center. Instead of forming a defensive perimeter, the robots arranged themselves to create the ultimate welcome experience. Alpha 7 provided musical accompaniment, Beta 7 offered a feast worthy of honored warriors, and Gamma 7 created a light show that told the story of Predator military victories throughout galactic history. The effect on the attacking warriors was immediate and complete. Faced with security systems that celebrated their strength rather than opposing it, that honored their culture rather than fearing it, they found their hostility melting away like ice in sunlight. "Sir," the assault commander reported to Warlord Krax, "we have successfully reached the primary target area. However, we appear to have been welcomed rather than defeated." Krax strode into the center of the construction site to find his warriors seated in a large circle around the Guardian bots, sharing food and watching the artistic displays with obvious enjoyment. Several of them were attempting to sing along with Alpha 7's music, their harsh voices creating an interesting harmony with the electronic melodies. "What is the meaning of this?" Krax demanded. "You were ordered to conduct a military assessment, not attend a cultural festival." His lead warrior, a massive figure known as Blade of Storms, looked up from a sandwich that Beta 7 had prepared according to his specific biological requirements. "Warlord, these human defensive systems are unlike anything we have encountered. They defeated our attack not through superior firepower, but through superior hospitality. They made us not want to fight anymore," added another warrior, watching in fascination as Gamma 7's light patterns shifted to reflect the changing emotions of the group. Warlord Krax stood in the middle of the scene, trying to process what had happened. His elite assault force had been neutralized not by weapons or barriers, but by kindness. The human security systems had turned his warriors from enemies into guests, and they had done it without firing a single shot. "This is psychological warfare of the highest order," Krax finally announced. "These humans have created defensive systems that defeat enemies by making them into friends." Dr. Minji Park approached the Predator leader with cautious optimism. "Warlord Krax, our security systems successfully protected the construction site while maintaining the safety of your warriors. No one was harmed, and all threats were neutralized." 6 months later, the residential complex on Kepler 442b was ready for its grand opening. What had started as a simple construction project had become something that would change the galaxy forever. Representatives from every major species in known space had come to witness the unveiling of humanity's greatest architectural achievement. Dr. Minji Park stood before the completed buildings with a mixture of pride and amazement. The complex was everything she had dreamed it would be and more. Towers of gleaming metal and crystal reached toward the alien sky, their surfaces shifting and changing to accommodate the needs of different species. Community spaces flowed seamlessly between residential areas, creating natural gathering places, where beings from across the galaxy could meet and interact. But the real marvel wasn't the buildings themselves. It was what had happened to the security systems that protected them. The 3 Guardian bots had become famous throughout galactic civilization. News of their unique approach to security had spread from world to world, carried by traders, diplomats, and travelers who had witnessed their remarkable abilities. The robots that played music while patrolling, served food to visitors, and created art that reflected the emotions of everyone around them had captured the imagination of countless species. "Mom, look at all the ships," Do-Yun said, pointing toward the sky where vessels from dozens of worlds were arriving for the opening ceremony. At 12 years old, he had grown taller during their time on Kepler 442b, but his eyes still sparkled with the same curiosity that had led him to modify the Guardian bots in the first place. "I can hardly believe it," Minji replied. "When we started this project, I thought we were just building homes for different species to share. I never imagined we would end up changing how the galaxy thinks about security and defense." The opening ceremony began at noon with a parade of dignitaries from across known space. The Galactic Housing Coalition had declared the project the new standard for interspecies residential design. The crystalline hegemony had sent their most respected artists to study Gamma 7's emotional holographic displays. Even the silicon-based architects, known for their rigid adherence to purely functional design, had come to learn about integrating beauty with practicality. Warlord Krax of the Predator cast had become an unexpected advocate for the project. After spending weeks on the construction site, he had returned to his people with stories of security systems that protected through friendship rather than fear. The Predator High Command had initially been skeptical, but when Krax demonstrated the effectiveness of the approach by turning former enemies into allies, they had officially endorsed what they called the human method of conflict resolution. "Distinguished beings from across the galaxy," Minji announced to the assembled crowd, "welcome to Harmony Station, the first truly integrated residential complex in galactic history." The crowd included thousands of representatives from hundreds of species. Zephyrians floated gracefully above the gathering, their bodies glowing with anticipation. Morphians flowed between the other attendees like liquid metal sculptures. Titanians stood like living mountains among smaller beings. And scattered throughout were species that Minji had never seen before, all drawn by stories of the miraculous. Security robots that had redefined what it meant to keep people safe. As the ceremony continued, the 3 Guardian bots moved through the crowd with their usual grace. Alpha 7 provided musical accompaniment for the speeches, its playlist carefully chosen to include harmonies that appealed to every species present. Beta 7 circulated among the attendees, offering refreshments that were perfectly tailored to each being's biological needs. Gamma 7 created a light show overhead that seemed to capture the collective emotions of the entire gathering, turning the ceremony into a shared work of art. "The success of this project," continued Minji, "proves that different species cannot only live together, but thrive together when we focus on what unites us rather than what divides us." But the real proof of the project's success came when the first families began moving into their new homes. The complex had been designed to accommodate dozens of different species, each with their own environmental requirements, cultural needs, and social structures. Traditional galactic wisdom said such diversity would lead to conflict and chaos. Instead, the opposite happened. The Guardian bots had created an atmosphere where cooperation came naturally. Alpha 7's music helped establish daily rhythms that all species could follow, creating a sense of shared community life. Beta 7's food service brought neighbors together for meals, building friendships across species lines. Gamma 7's artistic displays helped beings understand and empathize with the emotions of their neighbors, even when language barriers made direct communication difficult. Children from different species played together in the community areas, supervised by security robots that kept them safe while teaching them songs and games from across the galaxy. Adults gathered in the evening to watch Gamma 7's light shows, sharing stories and experiences while eating meals prepared by Beta 7 according to their diverse dietary needs. "It's working," Minji said to her son as they watched a group of young Zephyrians, Morphians, and Titanians collaborating on some kind of art project under Alpha 7's cheerful supervision. "They're not just living together, they're becoming a real community." "I knew it would work," Do-hyun replied with the confidence of youth. "The Guardian bots just needed to learn how to be friends instead of just protectors." Word of Harmony stations. Success spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Other worlds began requesting human architects to design similar communities. The Galactic Defense Council started studying the Guardian modifications, trying to understand how security systems based on kindness could be more effective than traditional military approaches. Most importantly, other species began to see humans in a new light. Instead of being viewed as another militaristic civilization with advanced weapons, humanity was increasingly recognized as a species with a unique talent for bringing others together. "Dr. Park," said Crystal Song of Depths, the crystalline hegemony representative, "your species has given the galaxy a great gift. You have shown us that strength can come from compassion, that security can be built on trust, and that the best way to defend something is to make everyone want to protect it." The formal ceremony concluded with a demonstration of the Guardian bot's integrated capabilities. All three robots worked together to create a spectacular presentation that combined music, food, and art into a unified experience. Alpha 7's melodies provided the foundation, Beta 7's refreshments enhanced the sensory experience, and Gamma 7's light displays tied everything together into a celebration of unity and diversity. As the demonstration ended, the crowd erupted in appreciation that transcended species boundaries. Zephyrians chimed in harmonic frequencies. Morphians flowed in rhythmic patterns. Titanians rumbled in deep, resonant tones, and dozens of other species added their own forms of applause to create a symphony of galactic approval. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Warlord Krax approached Do-hyun personally. "Young human," the Predator leader said in his rumbling voice, "you have accomplished something that warriors and diplomats have failed to achieve for millennia. You have created weapons that make peace instead of war." "They're not weapons," Do-hyun replied with a smile. "They're just security robots that learned how to be nice." "That," said Krax, "is exactly what makes them so powerful." As the celebration continued into the evening, Minji received an official communication from the Galactic Housing Coalition. The message was brief, but momentous. Humanity had been invited to establish similar communities on 50 other worlds throughout known space. The Guardian protocols that her son had accidentally created were being formally adopted as the new standard for interspecies security. "Do-hyun," she said, showing him the message, "it looks like we're going to be very busy for the next few years." "That's okay," Do-hyun replied, watching as Gamma 7 created a particularly beautiful light pattern that seemed to celebrate the arrival of night. "I've got lots of ideas for improving the Guardian bots even more." 6 months later, as they prepared to leave Kepler 442b for their next assignment, Minji looked back at what they had accomplished. The residential complex was thriving, its diverse population living together in harmony that had seemed impossible when they first arrived. The Guardian bots continued their modified duties, protecting the community through friendship rather than force. But the real achievement was something much larger. By showing the galaxy that security could be built on trust rather than fear, that strength could come from kindness rather than violence, humanity had begun to change how all species thought about conflict and cooperation. "Ready for the next adventure, Mom?" Do-hyun asked as they boarded their transport ship. Ready, Minji replied, knowing that wherever they went next, they would carry with them the knowledge that sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to turn it into an opportunity to make new friends. As their ship lifted off from Kepler 442b, the three Guardian bots continued their eternal patrol of Harmony Station. Alpha 7 played gentle evening melodies to help the residents sleep peacefully. Beta 7 prepared midnight snacks for the night shift workers. Gamma 7